Good evening to all. So, shall we start? No?
Yes. We'll start. It's already 7:02.
Okay. So, good evening to all. Welcome to the family of PPK. During the month of July, we already conducted a webinar related to the branches of psychology, and which was taken by Dr. Shabu Viraj. And today, another webinar from PPK family. And today's chief guest is Mr. Amar Rajan, the director and CEO of Mindkarta. And the topic is about the scope of organizational psychology in post-COVID. So, in this moment, I would like to welcome our PPK secretary, Ms. Ammu, for the welcome speech.
Good evening, all of you. Welcome to the second webinar from the webinar series conducted by the Association Professional Psychologists of Kerala. Today we have an area in psychology that is much more to be explored, much more to be explored and studied upon. An area which has immense opportunity to offer to all those who love psychology and who pursue psychology as a passion. I hope the session is highly fruitful and useful to each one of you. I welcome you all to the webinar once again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ammu. Next, moving on to the presidential address, I would like to welcome our PPK President, Ms. Priyanka SJ, the vibrant lady, to deliver the presidential address and to introduce the chief guest. Priyanka.
Thank you. Good evening, friends. Hearty welcome to our Association Professional Psychologists of Kerala. I'm Priyanka, President of PPK. One of my duties is to introduce our association briefly. PPK was started and legally registered in 2018. The primary purpose of our association is to promote the growth of fellow psychologists and field of psychology, to protect the rights and dignity of psychologists as academicians, researchers, practitioners in Kerala by prohibiting quacks from indulging in psychological care practices, advocacy to include postgraduate graduates in psychology when notifying the post of counselors in family court, school psychologists and others, and also to ensure that suitably qualified teachers are considered for teaching faculty positions in psychology for B.Ed colleges, nursing, physiotherapy, and other allied health sciences. And those who are interested in becoming a member of PPK can apply through our website, ppk.org.in. And my second duty is to introduce our resource person, Mr. Amar Rajan. Amar Rajan is a Cambridge-trained psychometric expert and a successful entrepreneur. He has over 10 years of experience as an organizational psychologist and trainer with multinational corporate firms. He completed his master's in psychology, MPhil in consulting psychology, and submitted his PhD thesis in 2017. He is the director and CEO of Mindkarta Psychological Service Private Limited. His areas of interest or his specialty includes personality assessment using psychometric tools, design and conduct programs on emotional intelligence, personal growth programs, stress management, effective parenting, and employee counseling. So I'm sure that this webinar will be meaningful, thought-provoking, and valuable for all the participants. And I am also inviting Mr. Amar Rajan for delivering his presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Priyanka, Ammu, and all team members here. Thank you so much for the PPK team members for organizing this seminar or workshop, whatever we call it. Are there any non-Keralite or anybody who cannot understand Malayalam in this meeting here? Anybody? Okay. So then we will primarily speak in both the languages. Oh, I am from Hyderabad. There is one person. Then we will continue speaking in English. Okay. All right. So as okay, Rafat, we will speak in English. No worries. Okay. All right. So as the president introduced me, I'm basically a psychology postgraduate. and then I practice organizational behavior since 2002 onwards. I completed my master's in 2002. Now, the interesting part of organizational psychology is when I was doing my master's in 2000 and 2002, that period, there was only one person out of my 18 classmates specialized in organizational behavior. Unfortunately or unfortunately, that was me. That is a time we are talking about 2000 and 2002. Probably, if we calculate now, we have even almost we passed even a decade from 2002. Now, even right now, if we take the number of students who opt for organizational behavior, or maybe consumer behavior, or maybe some other areas where people study human behavior in an organization, or maybe in a business point of view, you will still see single-digit numbers in universities and other colleges. This is actually the reality of organizational behavior and organizational psychology. Now, there are a lot of reasons for this particular situation. Number one, people are very reluctant to take this organizational behavior as a specialization because they are scared to take it. Number one. Number two, they don't actually know if they specialize in this organizational psychology field, where they can find a job and how soon they can join for a job. This actually creates a lot of confusion, a lot of anxiety when they study psychology in their postgraduate level. Now, this happens mainly because, when we are doing the postgraduate course, we know if there are 18 or 20 classmates, 90% of them will definitely go for a clinical psychology option. Then those who are not interested in clinical psychology, they will go for a educational psychology stream. And those who are not fit or they don't find educational psychology very interesting, they will specialize something else, or maybe they will go for a whichever is the next specialization, they will do that. Now, apart from this, if somebody force you to take organizational behavior, the first question they ask is, where do I find my job? This is the first question. Organizational psychology specializing or prospective students, they ask, where do I find the opportunity and how do I find the opportunity? Now, in this discussion, I would like to highlight a couple of aspects which will help students, if there are any students right now, which will help them understand how they can find opportunities and where they can find opportunities, and what are the skill set they should actually learn and imbibe before they complete their master's degree. Okay, so first of all, I would like to just ask a question. Maybe anybody randomly or maybe volunteers can answer the question. When you hear organizational psychology, what is a picture that comes in your mind? I'm not pointing anybody. You can feel free to answer this question. This question is very subjective. I'm not expecting anybody to say a textbook-oriented answer. I really don't want that. So whatever is, the primary image that comes into your mind when you hear organizational behavior or somebody specializing in organizational psychology, what comes in your mind?
Yeah, for me, looking after the mental health in the organizational setup. Say example.
Looking after the mental health in an organizational setup. Excellent. Okay.
Especially, I'm working in oil and gas sector. My duty is to looking after their mental well-being.
Great. Very good. Somebody else was saying something.
Studying workplace behavior.
Studying workplace behavior. Very good. Okay. Now, Rafat saying working with the groups. Okay. All right, Rafat. Yes. Okay. Great. Anyone else? Okay, fine. Now, all these three answers make absolute sense when we discuss organizational behavior. But when you start learning organizational behavior, we should actually start from a very simple or simplest image of an organization, and then we should build our imagination based on that particular image. So if you look at the organizational behavior in a smallest point of view, you will see that the smallest organization in this world that we all experience, even from our birth onwards, which one would be that? The smallest organization in the world?
Family.
Family. Okay, very good, very good. So many people, when they start learning organizational behavior, they have an intention to imagine organizational behavior in terms of a big giant company. Maybe some people will think that, when we say organizational psychology, now it is Google or Yahoo or maybe WhatsApp or maybe Facebook or maybe Twitter or something like this, very big giant companies, and a person who completed master's degree in psychology working there, handling psychological aspects within that particular organization. Actually, this is exactly what an organizational psychologist do. But before reaching there, yes, you are the people. Okay. Before reaching that particular visualization, what we should do is to understand and comprehend organizational behavior. We should actually start from the smallest organization, and we should be able to identify the dynamics, the dynamism happening within that smallest organization. Then only we will understand what is actually the range and scope of organizational behavior when it comes to a bigger picture. Okay, many people, they get shattered, they become very anxious when they start thinking about an organization in the biggest picture and thinking, what can I do inside an organization? This confusion stems from a person's point of view, the way they perceive and the way they understand things when they learn organizational behavior. So when you try to understand this organizational behavior, the starting point should be, we should actually start from the foundation, from the basic level. What exactly can we finalize with this organizational behavior? So we start from the smallest organization as a small family, and we find most of the behaviors that we learn in organizational psychology. Now, those who have specialized in organizational behavior, you might be familiar with the topics that we learn in organizational behavior. Something like, say for example, can somebody say what could be the different topics that comes under organizational behavior?
Job stress, communication.
Very good. Job stress comes in. Communication. Okay. Well, very good. Then what are the other ones?
Work motivation.
Work motivation.
Leader.
Very good. Very good. Okay. What else? Work motivation happens. Management. Yes. Management. Leadership. Great. Okay.
Absenteeism.
Sorry?
Absenteeism.
Organization development, change.
Organizational
development and change.
Organizational development and change. Very good. Okay. All right. Now, whichever
Dr. Shibu was saying absenteeism.
Absenteeism. Okay. Very good. Absenteeism. Okay.
That's
Now,
the same
whichever. Sorry.
The same point I raised. Okay.
Okay. So whichever area that we talked right now, can you imagine those topics inside your family? I'm not sure how well we can imagine absenteeism within the family, but if you look at other aspects, something like a job stress, can you apply job stress within a family where when the family would be under stress? Family as an organization, who is a leader in the family? Are there any single leader or are there any multiple leaders within the family? Okay, so whatever behavior, whatever topics that we see in an organizational behavior textbook, the easiest way to imagine and visualize about organizational behavior should be, we should actually apply those within our family. Now, once you are able to do this, I mean, even if you don't do this, you can still learn organizational behavior. You can actually work in an organization as a psychologist. There is nothing wrong in that. But when you imagine organizational behavior from a family perspective, you can actually be more creative and innovative all of a sudden. When you step into an organization, you will feel you can relate with many concepts in the organization very fast. That is the reason why when I say you should start visualizing organizational behavior, when you learn OB in your postgraduate course, you should start from the family. Then you can easily apply the principles and the topics. You can make those topics makes a lot of sense to you. Otherwise, what happens is you should actually wait for an internship in an organization. You should go there, and you will be very confused when you begin your journey as an organizational psychologist. So once you start with the family, you will find it very very much gelling. You will find it very interesting. You will also find it very, very much connected with organizational behavior. Now, when you look at these topics, organizational psychology, there are two branches to organizational psychology. Now, one is called as a micro organizational behavior. Another one is called as a macro organizational behavior. I'm not going to explain what is micro and what is macro, but this is a major division of organizational behavior. One focus more on individual behavior. Another one focus more on organization as a whole. Okay, so those organizational behavior and organizational development, all these things happen with the macro perspective. When it comes to the micro level, organizational behavior aspect comes in when we talk about individual aspects, individual development, individual stress management, those kind of things. Now, when you talk about these micro or macro level organizational behavior, every chapter that you learn in organizational behavior. Now, most of the people who learn organizational behavior, the so-called Bible of organizational behavior is Robinson's textbook. I'm sure you might have come across Robinson's textbook if you have learned organizational behavior in your master's degree, or even that is actually a very common textbook everyone refers when it comes to the OB learning. So when you open an organizational behavior textbook, whether it's a Robinson's textbook or some other textbook, you will see so many topics, something like 40 to 60 different topics that you will see. Now, as an organizational psychologist and a person who practices and work in organization, I feel that every chapter has a multi-billion-dollar scope in organizational behavior. This is exactly the plain truth about organizational behavior. Now, when you have already talked about different aspects, something like a stress in an organization, somebody said leadership, somebody said communication. There are so many other areas which we actually normally don't even think there is a scope for that particular area. Say, for example, perception. This is one chapter in an organizational behavior textbook that you will see. Maybe perception, learning and management. Now, perception itself is a huge area to work in an organization. Now, when we say perception is a very general term, and we learn perception in general psychology, especially for our bachelor's degree program. And we also learn perception in a master's level also. But how does it connect with organizational behavior? Can anybody guess how perception is connected to organizational behavior? Anybody, any guess? And how this perception becomes a multi-billion-dollar market when we talk about organizational behavior? Anybody, any guess? Those who haven't spoken yet, I think that would be better. Those who haven't spoken yet, they can speak. A social perception, okay. All right, very good. Anyone else? Stereotypes, oh, okay, all right. Okay, Dr. Shibu is telling stereotype. Okay, very good, excellent. What else? Just use, just random thoughts. Just feel free to raise your thoughts. Attribution. Oh, very good. Okay, very good. Yeah. Anybody else other than Dr. Shibu? Anyone else?
I think Sharu was trying to say something. Then she muted.
Feel free, okay? I mean, we are just discussing things, so feel free. There is no right or wrong answers here. So whatever you think, you just shout. Feel free. Multitasking perception. Okay, Rafat. Okay, very good. Multitasking perception. Okay, very good. Okay, so Dr. Yes.
Employees' perception in any calculated methods.
Okay, employees' perception about the organization. Okay, very good. Now there are, we can think from different sides when we talk about every topic in organizational behavior. Now, when I say this, now you might have already thought about one of the major skill required to survive in an organizational psychology field as an organizational psychologist. That is, we need to have immense level of creativity and innovation within our brain. Okay, because if you don't have that creative thinking, we will get stuck in many different stages as an organizational psychologist. Because many point of time, these opportunities are created. It is not already existing out there. So when I say perception, now there is a huge issue happening right now. Not huge issue, but there is a major issue happening with the celebrity, Bollywood celebrity. We all know that Shah Rukh Khan's son is arrested, and they are having a lot of issue with their perception management, public, how they perceive, public perceive Shah Rukh Khan and family. If you have noticed, suddenly in Facebook and other social media platforms, old Shah Rukh Khan videos started popping up. Have you noticed that? Shah Rukh Khan is offering some help to somebody. Aryan is offering help to someone, and so many people are talking about positive things about Shah Rukh Khan and family. Now, this is actually, there is a planned perception management is happening, these days. Now, you can see this with any major political parties when before their election campaign. They all try to do this perception management as a huge area. Now, the perception management happens not just a random, guesswork, or not just a random theoretical aspects. It is not happening like that. Perception management happens based on hardcore data that is taken from very promising sources. So when we talk about perception in an organization, we talk about how the brand image build up. What is it? Say, for example, now I am running a small company called Mindcarter. Now, Mindcarter must be having a perception. Maybe that perception is created out of my logo that I developed. Or maybe the perception is created through the maybe processes that I offer to public. That is one another possibility. But what if I would like to build an image to Mindcarter so that I can achieve to the next level? So this kind of a thinking every organization will have. most of the time what they do is they actually spend huge amount of money to create this perception through advertisement, through celebrity endorsement. Okay, so perception itself is a huge area. Now, I mean, when we talk about perception, that is not just managed only by the organizational psychologist. It would be handled by marketing psychology professionals, consumer psychologists. It would be working as a team. Now, when you think about a phone, mobile phone, why do you fancy having an Apple phone? If anybody having a phone or Apple phone, why do you think you would love to have an Apple phone? What is driving you to go and spend maybe 1 lakh or maybe 50,000 rupees and buy one Apple model, which would be definitely not, Dr. Shibu says it is a social status. Now, this social status is a perception that Apple product might have created. This is exactly where organizational psychologist, role of an organizational psychologist comes in. Okay, so perception is a very broad area where if we have our ideas. Now, as I told you, when you work as an organizational psychology, the number one skill that you need to have is you need to have tremendous imagination. You might be thinking that my imagination is stupid. Attraction for feeling good. Okay, Rafat, very good. Now, attraction for feeling good. Once I read somewhere, I don't know where I read that. I read this, and they say Apple company has philosophy students. I mean, philosophy postgraduates, psychology postgraduates. They have postgraduate and employees coming from different social science background. Now, Rafat is saying, it looks so good. Every phone is looking so good. But when you look at Apple, you see a different beauty. And that beauty is created, It is a crafted beauty. It is not just by default, it looks like that. But every corner of that phone and how it feels like when somebody is carrying an Apple phone, they go for a meeting and they build image just because they are carrying a phone. If you look at this, public image and public perception, you will see this with every big brand. Say, for example, Rolls-Royce. You see that is a brand, and they do a lot of specific things to keep that brand image as it is. So perception is a major area in organizational psychology where hardly few people are stepping into. Most of the people who work in perception management would be completely from marketing and consumer behavior area. So perception is one major area that organizational psychologists can really work with. So
and
this
one more
one.
thing. Yeah, sorry for interruption. One more thing I have seen that's most of the time when some guys or someone who use the Apple phone, they don't say my mobile or phone, they say my Apple phone like that.
Okay.
Apple. So they always pronounce Apple before the phone. So that is I feel like they are very obsessed with that some kind of software and all what they are using, and they feel that we are using Apple like Apple, that their perception totally different perception. See, phone is a phone and you can use any phone.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, I mean, even if you, Rafat, if you look at the operation of that particular phone, nobody is actually using Apple phone completely. They just carry the phone, they just take pictures, they just post it in Instagram. They're not using even 40% of Apple.
Exactly.
Yeah, they just carry that phone just so that they have a pep-up feel, or they have a boost-up feel for their personality, and they feel more acceptance in a peer group or maybe in the workplace. Okay, so this is actually a created and conditioned behavior without our knowledge. if you carefully observe these behaviors, how companies actually build their brands. Say, for example, another example I will tell you. When when you go to big brands, example would be Woodlands. Woodlands is a cloth and apparel brand. Most of their clothes are very big priced, something like 3,000 rupees, maybe 5,000 rupees for shoes. But they do have a discount area. Maybe in a year they have discount for 2 times. Now, what is the secret behind this discount, and why do they create this discount?
To sell their product, to get the.
It is one way, it is selling the product. On the other way, there is a subtle communication happening. Actually, our products are 5,000 rupees worth, but for this period, because we are serving the people and we are concerned about the people, we are offering a lower price of 4,500 price exclusively on this particular season. So they have already set their brand image as 5,000, and they make people accept 5,000 is worth buying Woodland, but now I am getting it for 4,500. So this is the right time to go and buy. This is the right time to grab Woodland. This kind of a perception every company will create in different ways. Those who succeed as a big company, big giant multi-billion-dollar company, if you closely watch and observe and make it as a case study, you will see that they actually invested most of their money in the initial years to build this image.
Yeah.
Those who haven't built this image, they will be a big time flop within years.
Mm-hmm.
So those why do they people go for endorsement? Say, for example, why do Messi becomes a brand ambassador? Why do Sachin Tendulkar becomes a brand ambassador? Now, all these are conditioning process. So when we say conditioning process, when we say branding process, when we say perception, when we say perception management, we learn that in our psychology syllabus. We learn that in organizational behavior. We learn that through general perception, general psychology. We can contribute a lot in an organization when they discuss about perception. What are the techniques that we can use? Now, leave different companies. What is happening with gaming these days?
Yeah, it's
why do people just sit on a chair for maybe hours, maybe 10 hours, 15 hours? What is making them glued to the chair? It is nothing but it is a reward management principles all these gaming companies use. Now, if you look at the market share of a gaming company in China or maybe some other countries, it is $1 billion market share they all have. Why do these people are sticking to that particular game? Only because the reward management principles and conditioning principles working behind that. Those gamings which are not a hit among the people, they lose on that particular aspect. They don't know how to frame the reward rate, how to frame a particular conditioning process. Now, if you look at the rewarding, we know that there is a fixed ratio. There is immediate reinforcement. There is a reinforcement that gets after a ratio reinforcement. There are different ways reinforcement happens. Who is learning all these? Psychology students learn this, and in organizational behavior, we learn that in a organizational context. So, whichever area. A simple example is about Colgate toothpaste. They already built a brand image more than 40 to 50 years. Some people have been using that. Absolutely. I totally agree with that. Now, this is, after this particular discussion, we all should think, what are the areas that people make us buy their products? We are slaves, and we actually mentally, we are already, agreeing to whatever they are saying.
Yeah, the thing is that nowadays the competition is so much that people are not going for the bargaining. If they are getting 3 t-shirts in 1,000 rupees, they will go for there. If you are getting from something very good in 1,000 rupees, you are getting 2 t-shirts. They said that we are getting 3. Why should we go for 2? That's the marketing,
Absolutely,
and they are
absolutely.
playing with the minds of the people who don't know that
Yes,
this thing. Yeah, totally.
absolutely.
It's a game of mind, playing with the minds
Yes.
of the people. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, I mean, the basic point, I would like to highlight here is perception is one area. Organizational psychology students and professionals can absolutely, explore in a, sky is the limit when we talk
Yes.
about perception. Now, when I went to Cambridge University for doing my psychometric course, our teacher, I forgot his name. He is actually a world leader in psychometrics. Okay, so he said he was handling this Cambridge Analytica data management and stuff when the American presidential election was happening. So he was talking about how this perception is built and how companies make use of different aspects of personality. Now, I'm just highlighting one more aspect, and then we will move to the next topic, to the other than perception. How personality is connected with perception. How we can actually use personality information to create perception. Can anybody say contribute to this? Those who haven't spoken yet, please feel free. Individual differences, excellent. Okay, all right. Okay, anybody else? I'm just asking how we can actually make use of personality data and connect it with perception. Always think, when we talk about organizational behavior, your ideas matters a lot. Okay. Then only you look at the theoretical aspects and how operational it is. So always feel free. Very good. Dr. Shibu is a champion in this area. I really appreciate Dr. Shibu. Well done. So let's explain this. Just imagine that you are running a resort, holiday resort. Okay. Neurotics thinks negatively. Okay, fine. Now we are not getting into maybe deep-rooted personality analysis, something like a Big 5 personality model. We are not looking into any of those. We are only looking at two extremes in personality scale. One is an introvert, another one is an extrovert. Okay, how this introverts and extrovert make sense, how they perceive the same aspect. Say, for example, you have immense money, you are rich, absolutely rich, and you have the capacity to own a Rolls Royce. And Rolls Royce as a company would like to create an brand image to people. How they can use, let's say, personality, introverts and extroverts. They know that people are introverts and people are extroverts. I'm an introvert, you might be an extrovert. Or maybe I am standing for election in the coming Lok Sabha election. If I want to win, if I want to create a perception among people in my area, how can I make use of perception? I mean, personality. Can somebody tell me? Just with these two examples, catering towards their perception of their personality. For example, there are so many videos on specific, okay, maybe self-higher views. Okay, fine. All right, I will just give you one eye-opening thing. Now, as we say, there are introverts and there are extroverts. Most of the time, generally speaking, if there is no psychology thought behind a particular organization, what happens is they follow the crowd and they create an advertisement which is very generic in nature. Okay, so let's say first example, you are running a resort and you would like to attract people. You would like to send an advertisement stating that the resort is open. After the COVID-19, the resort is open. Now, please welcome. We are expecting you for the weekend. Please come and stay here. They made an advertisement. Most of the time when you see the advertisement, what do you see in the brochure? So many people are assembled in one area. There is a campfire. People are drinking. People are dancing. People are eating together. This is a common image that we find in advertisement of resort. Now, if you analyze this particular advertisement, you will understand one aspect. This advertisement is mainly focusing on extroverted people. That is why you see people are dancing, people are assembled together. They are assembled together with a campfire. People are eating together. Nobody is focusing on introverts. Now, if there is a psychology thought behind this particular advertisement creation, that person will definitely say, we also need to take care of introverts. So we should also have a brochure which has an image, a person sitting in one corner looking at the beach, and he is reading a book, enjoying his coffee. Now, if you have created these two brochures and circulating these two brochures to the public, you are actually creating a brand image at the same time into the introvert's mind as well as to the extrovert's mind. Are you getting my thoughts? Are you all listening?
Yes.
Oh, okay. all right. Okay, so this is just an example of how we can make use of a simple concept in personality to the perception. Okay, so introverts and extroverts, and now we are linking this simple concept to the concept of perception management in an organization. Now, this is just an organizational aspect. Now imagine presidential election, Prime Minister, Lok Sabha election here in India, Legislative Assembly election, celebrity management, product management, everything. The scope is literally huge, and in the coming days, now there is a huge shift happened after this COVID-19. The endorsement now happening with most of the YouTube stars, if you have observed it. So everything is actually changing before COVID and after COVID situation. Okay, so what I'm trying to say here is, if you are interested in organizational behavior, the first and foremost thing that you should have is, you should have absolute vivid imagination. Okay, you should be able to imagine the impossible things first, and then you look for a theoretical concept which helps you define your imagination. Don't go in the other way around. Say, for example, many people will say that, I'm learning a theoretical concept about team building. Now this is how these are some perceptual errors. Okay, yeah, we will talk about that. There are so many people think that, first I will learn theory, I will by heart the theory, I will write it for the exam, so I get good marks, then I get placed in an organization and answer organizational psychology. This never happens. Okay, it happens the other way around. You imagine and you convey your imagination to somebody who is a CEO or somebody who is a leader in the organization with the help of a theoretical concept, and convince. You are there as an organizational psychologist. If you learn theory, you know the theory, you go to the organization and you say, see, according to the theory, this is not the way it should be done. You will be out maybe in a month's time or 2 months' time. No, no way we all are going to survive there as an organizational psychologist. It should happen the other way, because everyone is looking for problem solvers, not problem creators. They want to solve the issue within the organization. If you want to solve a problem, you should be absolutely creative and innovative. Okay, so this is one area. Just an example of one area where we can work on the perception. Now, if you, my area, the area that I am working with the corporates and other organizations are mainly training and development. assessment. Assessment is our major area these days. Nike, just do it. Yes, Jijit. Now, assessment is my major area. If you go to my website, you can see we are collaborating with a German firm called OD Tools. So we are partnering with OD Tools in Germany. OD Tools CEO is my classmate in Cambridge. So we are partnering in business right now. So we offer wide range of psychometric assessments to people, organization, and I am also stepping into data analysis and data management using psychometric assessment. So these are the two areas I am focusing apart from training and development. So training and development has a huge scope. Assessment has a huge scope. One of the major areas that you, as an organizational psychologist, you can work is assessment and recruitment and selection. This is one huge area that organizational psychologists can actually work. Okay, now I will just pause for a minute for taking a few questions from your end, so that I can take 2 minutes rest. So feel free to ask any questions so far. Any questions?
Any questions? You can ask, or you can even type in the chat box.
Yes. Okay, Rafat is asking, do we get jobs by doing diploma in organizational psychology? Okay. Yeah. Okay, we will move to how to find jobs in organizational psychology after this. Definitely we will highlight that. Apart from this, any other questions?
So I think we may move on. Yeah, one more question.
I think there is an impression management strategy some people following as this unwind of work from home started. Okay, great. Okay, now let us discuss about before COVID and after COVID situation in an organization, and how an organizational psychologist can contribute pretty well once the COVID situation is stabilized and people started coming back. Now, before the COVID...
So may I interrupt? I think your video is not on. Can you please check?
Yeah, my video is not on because I'm charging my phone.
Okay.
Okay. Am I audible? I will switch on the video after a while.
Yeah, sure. You're audible. Perfect.
Okay, great. Okay. All right. Now, before the COVID, every organization had this work from home philosophy. Okay. But when pre-COVID situation, when they say I'm working from home for today and tomorrow, it was most of the time it was a leisure kind of a time, because they can spend time with their family. Most of the time they might be cooking, they might be doing something during their leisure time at home. So that was actually the situation pre-COVID. But once the COVID happened, 100% of all the organizations in the world, they realized that they can actually manage work situation by working from home philosophy. Before COVID, they were all wondering what would be the real-time challenges if they make their employees working from home. Now, the COVID actually helped all the organizations to realize what are the day-to-day operational challenges from their end they will have to manage if they make their employees working from home full-time. Now, if you look at a couple of organizations like IBM, couple of organizations like Twitter, they already announced that after the COVID situation, once the COVID situation is stabilized, even in that case, they are going to make their employees working from home. Now, there are a lot of advantages and lot of disadvantages coming from working from home philosophy. Whether it is positive side or negative side, it is a huge area to work for organizational psychologists. That is actually the present situation. Now, I will give you one example. If the companies are saying that people should work from home and they don't need to come to the office, they can come to the office if there is a meeting scheduled. Say, for example, there is a conference. They need to meet with their team members once in a week. They can come to the office. Now, even most of the companies, even in the world, they started thinking, if it is for a once in a week meeting, can't we go to a resort and meet there and celebrate that meeting time and go back to our home instead of spending millions of rupees as a rent, as a electricity charge, as a day-to-day operational expense? Can't we save that and spend that money for people development, or maybe product development, or maybe to some other fruitful areas, rather than spending money as an expense? Now, so many organizations started thinking in this line. Now, what is the role of an organizational psychologist coming here? When you hear that people are going to be working from home, as a psychologist, what is a opportunity that we should look at? Are there any opportunities in this stage for a psychologist?
Of course.
Like, can you maybe
conflict, balancing work-family conflict.
Okay, very good. Work-family conflict. Now, I will also highlight one aspect. When we think about psychology, all of us, I'm not blaming anyone, all of us, even including myself, we all have a tendency to visualize psychology from a disorder point of view, or maybe a person has a problem. So psychology, I am learning psychology. So after learning psychology, my primary response should be treating somebody and helping that person to come out of their stressful life, or doing counseling or some other intervention so that I can make that person relieved. This is absolutely, there is a huge scope in that. I think Jijin was talking about that in the initial, when we started talking about organizational psychology, he was talking about mental health. After COVID, even WHO, their results, study results also saying that mental health issues are going to be staying here for a prolonged time. So obviously, irrespective of organization, irrespective of any other aspect, mental health issues are going to be here for a long time. So those who offer counseling programs, those who offer mental health services, they will definitely have a huge scope. Absolute truth. That is going to happen. Even for the next 5 years, 6 years, if you know counseling, if you are very good in providing counseling, you have necessary skills to become a counselor, you can definitely become a beautiful counselor and you can earn decent money just by doing counseling. Not doing any other things, just by doing counseling. Even in organizations these days, most of the money is spent on employee assistance program. We call it as a EAP. Most of the companies are spending most of their money into EAP. EAP is predominantly, they look at mental health aspects, employee health aspect. These are the areas they focus more on. And EAP is a multi-billion-dollar business across the world. If you, according to a statistic survey, across the globe, 4% of people in an organization having mental health issues pre-COVID. Now that is, multiplied by, many times. So the mental health issues are going to be here for a long time, and there is a huge scope in becoming a counselor in an organization, offering employee assistance program. That is there. But when we look at organizational psychology, if we start thinking or perceiving organizational psychology from a disorder point of view or from a clinical point of view, I'm telling you, your imagination would be absolutely confined and you will not be able to see anything other than counseling in an organization. So first and foremost thing is you should come out of clinical psychology or counseling psychology and start looking at other areas. You keep one organizational behavior textbook as a support so that you can actually visualize different areas with the support of a textbook. Now, as you said, there is a huge scope in counseling. Okay, leave counseling and mental health aspect. When people are working from home, what else do you see? Am I talking too much?
Sorry, can you make the question a bit more clear? I think that
as the unwind of work from home started. Yes. They're working from home. Actually, their employees are coming back to the offices. But again, there will be a huge change after, the COVID is stabilized. Companies will think from different perspective. They will make decisions in a different level compared to the other one. So I'm just asking, if a company decides that they would like to continue from working from home philosophy, as an organizational psychologist professional, what is the kind of scope that you see? That is my question.
From the employee perspective or from the organization's perspective?
Both perspective. You think from both perspective, or you have a three-dimensional perspective. Either you think from an employee perspective, think from an employer perspective, think from an organizational psychologist's perception.
As an employee will think that he can do in flexible things. So like employees are in a good place to work in a flexible time, or wherever he go and he take his laptop and all and do his work, and simultaneously he do the other works also. And for the organization, from the side of organization, like company, they will think that anyhow our work is going to be done with that person and it's going to be done on time. That is the thing. From two sides, he's saying that my work is going to be done, and he's telling that I'm doing the work if I have, whether I'm here or whether I'm there. These two things.
Very good answer. Okay. Have you any of you heard about the concept called a gig economy?
What economy?
Gig economy. You can Google this term, gig economy.
Okay.
GIG,
Mm-hmm.
Gig economy.
Okay.
Now, gig economy is actually the future of jobs. Gig economy says, if you are an organizational psychologist, before COVID, people used to say that you have to get a job in a particular company because you're going to spend your 8 hours a day within that company alone for maybe a number of years.
Yeah.
Now, gig economy is a different philosophical concept which says that your expertise is wanted and you can actually use your expertise for supporting a company of your choice. Say, for example, my company requires a support. I am hiring you. My requirement is over. I am relieving you. Okay. And now you are going to another company and you're offering your skill and support for the requirement in that company. It moves from there. So this permanent job concept will, diminish after this COVID situation is stabilized.
Exactly. People are not bothered that they are permanent or they're temporary. Anyway, they are getting jobs from office.
Now, most of the organization, even today, they started hiring people for their talent. Now, even I heard that Infosys started recruiting graduate students. They are not even engineers. What they are saying, if we find the right, person fit for our job, we will train how to do the job to them.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So people are changing, even organizations are changing. Now, when, after this COVID, when employees coming back to the organization, maybe they might continue with the work from home situation, or maybe they will say once in a week you should come here.
Like
Whichever way.
One example I want to share, like my cousin brother, he during this pandemic, he worked as a CSA in Amazon. After, like, for 6 months they have hired, and after that the 6 months was done. So now he's out of the Amazon. Now again he's applying for the level 1. It's like, do whatever you want to do, just to give your time, is like that. The company needs a person and needs the time. And now he's hiring for the under the company's terms and all. He has to manage the insurance and all those things. Within the 3 months, he is going to join for the senior post. So see the mentality of the organization. They just want the person to come and join us and do our work. We'll pay for you. Whatever will be yours. Yeah.
Absolutely.
but
So
he has done CNN, and he is very good in the networking, but still he is doing this job. Why? Because he is getting work from home.
Yes, absolutely. Now, these kind of situations are going to prevail, and it will happen more often after this COVID situation. Now, whichever way they offer, one major area an organizational psychologist can think is, how do they make their team as a team? Say, for example, now, if you imagine a pre-COVID situation, everyone comes into an organization, they have a room, they have a team meeting, they have a physical face-to-face meeting happening, then they have a ice-breaking session happening, they get to know each other, they gel as a team, they perform as a team, they make productivity as a team because they have team development activities. Now, when people start working from home, this team development activities are very, very limited, or rather impossible to create team development activities. So the current requirement of every organization is they really want to look at how well we can actually create a team if they are working from home. Now, to understand this, you need to refer theoretical aspects. What are the theoretical concepts of team development? Then you will see Tuckman's theory of team development. Then you will see Wordsworth's theory of team development. So you will see different stages in team development. So once a person or employees are working from home for permanently, how this theory can be applied there. So if after this COVID, people are, organizations are deciding we are going to continue with working from home ambience, team development is going to be a huge concern for all the organizations. There is no clinical psychology coming up here. There is no mental health aspect coming up here. It is pure organizational behavior that we are dealing with. Okay. So you have a huge potential. If you are capable of offering a solution to an organization, saying that I have a package to help your employees gel together when they are working remotely, they will immediately take your support, because every organization is looking at that.
But one more thing, sorry for interruption, but I feel that how the mental health help will be providing for the work from home employees. Like if you are in a company, if you are coming regularly on time and signing on and signing in and signing off, so at that time in between, whenever a person or employee feel like stress or something financially or personally, whatever is there, he will come out from that situation and talk about that with the one-to-one counseling session. You can understand what I'm telling you. So this is
very good. Now when you look at this is exactly where assessment happens. Okay. So say for example, in an organization there are 100 people. Now 100 people, if they are working 100 people out of 100 people, what if somebody can predict that these many people have burnout syndrome? If you don't handle these many people, if you don't offer stress management program to these many people, then it is going to be a huge trouble. So there are, solution providers who comes up with assessment saying that our assessment can help as an organization to map how many people required support, how many people required a certain aspect of training program. That is another area that is going to boom. Okay.
Yeah.
So these kind of team development, assessment, and apart from this, then another mental well-being. Now everyone is talking about mental well-being. That does not only confined to mental health aspect. It is organizations call it as a mental well-being, because they are bothered about their employees' well-being. That is why they spend time in a resort, they celebrate their time together, and they want to create more of a positive aspects happening within their organization. So positive psychology concepts are going to be very, very important in the coming days after this COVID, once they start coming back to office, or even if they continue working from home. So even you have to look at these aspects from a creative perspective. So I'm repeating that because from a traditional point of thinking, we will not be able to offer a solution to an organization, because we need to think from a positive and absolutely from a current situation, and only then we can actually bring solutions forward. For that, we can actually use textbooks as a support system. Then definitely we will have different imagination. You can discuss with your counterparts, you can discuss with leaders in an organization. So they will also give you the real-time challenges they face, and you can actually make use of those platforms for networking. That is how organizational psychology actually develops.
Yes.
Okay.
In addition
So
to
now,
that, one more point. In addition with that, now, while ago you mentioned that in an organization, 4% of the employees, they are having some kind of psychology problem. Yeah, from that, that 80% of the people, from the 4%, like a majority of the people they are not coming with that. If they have a stress, if they have any anxiety. So in that time, what we are doing, we are just conducting a awareness session that there is a service available. It is common, and also we are make them educating that now it is common. Just and we are educating about the stigma. So that certain extent we can eliminate this kind of problem.
Yes, definitely we can. At the same time, the people, why they are not, making use of these counseling programs or mental health activities that is happening in an organization, it is only because they are afraid of the stigma that is going to prevail once they offer accept that particular service. Say for example, if you are offering a counseling service in a workplace and you avail that service, and once you avail that service and coming back to your workplace space, you definitely will worry how your manager is going to think about you after you take a counseling session. That is a major tension with almost all the employees. Now that is actually the major reason why employee assistance programs are not fruitful in any of the organization. You won't believe many organizations will have EAP program, but hardly the first 2-3 months the EAP program would be happening in fully fledged manner. But after maybe 6 months down the line, nobody will be going to meet the counselor. But people will be going to meet their counselor outside the workplace. They're very happy doing that. In a confidential manner, they're very happy doing that. These are all, what I'm saying is, these are all opportunities in front of us. You can think in a different way. We can say that we have a completely different. Now, there are so many chat bots available right now for counseling. Now, if you Google chat bots for counseling, you will see a couple of very fantastic chat bots with robotic counseling happening. Now, that is actually the latest trend in organizational behavior, especially with the mental health scenario. People are using robotic counseling sessions. So the artificial intelligence will, give a heads up if that particular person speaking something very serious aspect, something like a suicidal thought conversation, something like that, immediately there will be an intimation going to the physical, the real counselor, and they will start calling and they will intervene accordingly. So there are a lot of things happening, using artificial intelligence, robotics, machine learning, natural language processing, all these things. There are so many things happening. Now, recently I have explored, I read an article from UK, which says that, there is a natural language processing program which actually identifies people from Instagram through their post if they have a suicidal ideation. So there are so many things happening in the world right now in terms of innovative and creative method. So I repeat, when we talk about organizational psychology, we should be absolutely creative. So if you are not creative, you don't need to worry about that. I am not creative, so OB is not meant for me. What you should do is you should actually discuss organizational behavior with as many people as possible. You should read as many researches happening in organizational behavior. You should talk to HR leaders or organizational leaders and understand what is the current real-time problems they face. You will start thinking from a creative angle. So in the post-COVID, the most important aspect right now is every organization is hit by this coronavirus and they lost billions of dollars. So what they are trying to do is they are actually preserving their resources, their money, and their employees. And they are actually working out solutions which actually, does not cost them a lot of money in terms of spending. So whether you are creative, whether you are not creative, an organization will look at an organizational psychologist if he or she is coming up with a creative solution, if that person makes sense, if that person understands real-time problem our organization face right now, and is it cost effective. If you actually have a combination of all these, then there is a scope for you as an organizational psychologist after this COVID situation. This is actually the combo right now. The combo is very simple. Your solution that you come up with, it should be cost effective. Cost effective in the sense, previously, let's say, for example, you have a solution. You say that I have a solution. My solution cost 100 rupees. If you like my solution, you buy it. This was the pre-COVID situation. And there were a lot of takers and people, as we all learn about Maslow's hierarchical theory, because every organization is satisfied in the basic need, basic level. So everyone is spending money for most of the extra glamorous and luxurious aspects. I always feel that organizational psychologist comes into the luxurious segments of an organization, because when you look at the money spending, you will understand that even after this COVID happened, they immediately cut down a lot of money from learning and development perspective, and nothing happened within the organization dramatically. They still survive. So after this COVID, what they're going to do is they have money, they are willing to spend money, but they are very careful spending even a penny on certain aspect. So your solution, your attitude, and the way that you should approach an organization should be, I have a solution with me. Okay, I can customize that solution based on your budget. It's not the other way. I have a solution. My solution costs 100 rupees. If you like my solution, you buy it, or else you don't need to buy. I'm not forcing you. That was a pre-COVID attitude. The post-COVID attitude should be, I have a solution. I am here to help you. I am 100% confident that I can help you, and I can tweak my solution based on your budget. This is going to be for the next 6 to 7 months, or maybe to a maximum of 12 months at least. This would be the organization's attitude, because they are ready to spend money, but at the same time, they would be thinking twice before they're spending the money. Okay, so pre-COVID and post-COVID situation, this is going to be a major attitude shift that you are going to witness.
So the thing is that when we are going to apply for the job, they like obviously they want the whatever the employee they are appointing, they want it to be experienced, right? After doing this internship or diploma, they won't trust on us, and they won't think that we can do that work what they are expecting from the organizational psychology, something like that, we can say, or a counselor, something they will call us as.
Okay, now let's talk about the career prospects and how we can get into an organization and what should be the best way possible to step into an organization and understand organizational psychology. Now, if you are a student who is doing post-graduation, or you're learning organizational psychology as a distance education, the first and foremost step should be, do not hunt for a role of an organizational psychologist, because you hardly find advertisement that is coming out. Very few advertisement you will see pan India. You will see maybe in Mumbai, Bangalore, or maybe some other places, metropolitan cities. You will see once in a while we are looking for an organizational psychologist. You hardly see that. Practically speaking, in Kerala, you don't even see an advertisement which is calling for an organizational psychologist. So don't think that, after specializing in organizational psychology, you should be looking for a role of an organizational psychologist. Rather, I would suggest your intention should be stepping into an organization with your graduation or postgraduate degree. Most preferably, you should step into an organization in their human resource management department, or maybe people management department. This should be the first and foremost step. Okay, the first step. This is a baby step. This is just a baby step. Now, any profession, if you look at whether it's an organizational behavior, organizational psychologist, or maybe in a clinical psychology or a school counselor, whichever is. Luckily, in school counseling and clinical psychology, people actually call for, we want a clinical psychologist, we want a school counselor. Directly, they call for it. But unfortunately, organizational psychology roles are not, happening in that way. Because organizational psychology roles are created by, most of the time, it is created by those people who are working behind that. Unfortunately or fortunately, that is actually the trend in India. Maybe in Europe or maybe in UK, definitely people are calling for organizational psychologists. Once you complete your master's degree, you can apply directly for a role of organizational psychologist in UK, Europe, and Australia, and Canada, these kind of places, New Zealand. But here, if you have plans to stick on to our country, India, the best possible way is you step into an organization with your postgraduate degree and start contributing your knowledge voluntarily. Maybe in 6 months' time, 1 year time, you will understand, okay, in this organization, there is a huge potential for training and development. Or maybe in an organization X, you will see there is a huge role for a person here to become a team development consultant, because all the entire team development process is not happening in a scientific manner. So I have learned team development in my organizational behavior, and I know what are the theoretical aspects. I can help this particular HR team how to make the team performance better. So once you understand this and you contribute in those lines, you can start claiming organizational psychologist label in the organization. Otherwise, if you look at, say for example, if you have 2 years experience working in an organization as a organizational psychologist, definitely people will call for that. Otherwise, it is going to be a tough go in the initial years. I personally felt, I struggled quite a lot in the initial years, because, nobody was ready to accept organizational psychology. What do you mean by that? Even in the organization, people are more interested in human resource management, people management, because they
those are the people who require organizational behavior as a subject. Say, for example, a team leader, that person should understand how leadership works. What is the motivation? If I need to motivate my team members, what should I do? What is intrinsic motivation? What is extrinsic motivation? What is actually a theory X, theory Y? This should be known by a team leader, a person who is a leader. So an organizational psychologist should be able to step into that particular workspace and contribute in that level. So that happens automatically. Maybe in 6 months' time, you will actually understand what is actually the requirement of that particular organization, and you can start contributing it. What you should actually remember while you do your course, you should be spending more and more time to improve your skill set and networking. This is exactly what you should be doing, rather than looking for an advertisement which is calling for an organizational psychologist. You have a lot of things to be done when you do a course in organizational behavior, because you have to be absolutely creative. You need to create a pool of contacts, within the organization. So you have n number of HR managers in your network, so that you can sell that, I'm looking for an opportunity in human resource people management. Is there any option? Is there any opportunity there? So you see plenty of opportunities happening like that. But there are water everywhere, but not a single drop to drink. You might have heard about this philosophy. So organizational psychology requirement is everywhere. Everywhere. I literally mean everywhere you see organizational psychology role, but you don't see that very obviously.
I'm sorry to disturb you. Actually, in coming future, especially the Middle East region, most of the project funded by the World Bank. So in another way, there is a lot of opportunities for organization psychologists. So very soon, maybe within 6 months or within 1 year, there's a more opportunity coming from Middle East side.
Very good, very good. Now, even in Middle East, yesterday I saw an opportunity in Denmark. They are looking for an organizational psychologist, and they are not, specified any nationality or visa requirements. So this is going to happen in the coming days because of this COVID. So because of the COVID, only one segment of people are created. The opportunities are created for particular segment. If there is a segment like that, that is exclusively for psychology, because many people are distressed. Even companies, they are remaking their policies, and they need tremendous support from psychology fraternity. So as an organizational psychologist, I repeat, mental health aspect is only just a 5% of organizational psychology. The 95% depends absolutely on your imagination and your skill set. So you please do polish your skill sets. You need to have tremendous skills in terms of understanding the problem. How do you analyze the problem? On what grounds you establish that there is a problem? I still remember when I was doing my master's degree, there was a professor called Dr. Sam Sanandaraj. He always, I remember this especially from what he taught us. He didn't actually teach this. He was talking this while he was taking a lecture one day. He said, if you are unable to find a problem within an organization and offer a solution, you cannot become a psychologist. So if you need to identify that there is a problem, then you should convince that there is a problem in your organization to the management or the leaders there. And you should convince them and make them believe that there is a problem. Then you should tell them, I can help you. I have the capacity to help and unwind this problem. If you are unable to do that, you cannot become an organizational psychologist. This is the very plain and simple, the entire skill set that you need to develop, and you should understand, comprehend. Everything is within this one single sentence. If you are unable to identify there is a problem, if you are unable to convince the management that there is a problem, if you are unable to offer a solution, you cannot become a organizational psychologist. In a positive side, if you can identify a problem in an organization, if you can convince that there is a problem in your organization, if you can convince that person that I can be of help, you see a role of an organizational psychologist in every organization in the world. Literally every organization. Okay, so I would leave now to questions. Maybe you can ask a couple of doubts or clarify your questions.
There is a question in the chat box.
Okay.
It says, I have done masters and I have done 6 months course in counseling psychology.
Okay.
Can I apply for, I think the question is incomplete.
I have done masters and I have done 6 months course counseling psychologist. Okay. Yeah, definitely. You can apply. See, always remember when you apply for an organizational psychologist, now you have done your counseling psychology. So you see an opportunity in an organization as a counselor. So you should understand after this COVID, every organization would definitely require a counselor. So if you want to become a counselor, you should actually polish your skills as a counselor. What are the skill sets required to become a counselor? You should follow the ethical grounds. You should know all the ethical issues in a counseling. You should know how to make a rapport, how to build a rapport with strangers, and how to make other people comfortable to you, how to make other people voluntarily come to you and talk, how to accept people from different background. Say, for example, now organizations started recruiting different genders, not just male and female. They also have transgenders, and they have different people of different choices. They have gays, they have lesbians, they have so many different backgrounds. Are you ready to accept people from different background? Do you have a problem, or do you have a problem accepting them? As a counselor, you should have a tremendous generosity in your mind so that you can accept anyone. You can actually have a conversation, strike a conversation with anybody. So you need to develop these kind of thinking, perception, a lot of things needs to be worked out. So if you have these skill set, definitely you can work as a organizational counselor. There is a huge scope for that, definitely. Now, Dr. Shibu is asking, license to be a professional counselor is still a question. Definitely, because there are a lot of people who are, claiming that they are counselor because they have experience. Say, for example, experience in the sense, I am 60-year-old and retired, and I have faced a lot of people in my career, and I have given advices to a lot of people. So I am a good counselor. So I can be a counselor. A lot of people claim that. A lot of people on the other end, neuro-linguistic program, NLP program, they say that I have done a certification program in neuro-linguistic programming. So I am a counselor. I can be a counselor. So there are a lot of people who are coming with this. So in India, I mean, the rules are still developing, in the developing stage, I think. But if it is abroad, rules are pretty strict, and what is actually the track to become a counselor, what is actually the track to become a clinical psychologist. You clearly, it is differentiated, and it is absolutely with clarity. They have defined each role. So till then, I think that clarity should become a little problematic, but it will definitely happen. Licensing is still an issue here, definitely. Any other question? To become organizational psychology, what all should we specialize after 12th? After 12th, what you should do is you should actually join for a graduation program in psychology, and then you can join for a postgraduate course and specialize in organizational psychology. And then, as I told you, it's not what you learn in PG course. It's about what is the kind of skill that you develop. Whether are you able to interact with the stranger? Are you able to strike a conversation with the stranger? Do you have the skill to become a trainer? Do you know how to convey the, very complex theoretical issues to a group of employees who are not heard about psychology at all? So there are a lot of skill set that you need to develop. So don't just assume that once you join organizational psychology in a university, you become an organizational psychologist. You will never become an organizational psychologist like that. You have to develop a lot of skills. I think PPK can take care of that. Yes. Yeah, I think, PPK should start offering skill development programs, because I feel there is a huge vacuum in skill development when it comes to whether organizational psychologists, counselors, or whoever it is, even any area that you take in psychology, there is a huge potential for skill development. So I'm sure PPK will start doing that from this year onwards. Any other questions?
There is one more question in the chat box.
Okay, let me just read. I can't see that.
Okay. Then it's...
Can you read that question that you...
Can you see it now?
Oh, yes. For a psychology graduate to be an entrepreneur, someone who knows psychology of people, what should be the first thing to be focused on as per organizational psychologist? Oh, that's a really nice question. Okay. Now, see, if you want to become an entrepreneur, I always believe in this, but I think the first and foremost thing you should think about when you become an entrepreneur, you have to be financially very stable. This is a very important aspect. So many people, what they do is they invest a lot of money and then they become an entrepreneur. My personal experience, I would say, don't invest money, invest only your brain and your thoughts, and then you become an entrepreneur. If you have the capacity to become such an entrepreneur, then you can become a great entrepreneur in psychology. But if you invest a lot of money and then you establish as an entrepreneur, then it is going to be a very huge risk. Because, the business worldwide, if you look at that, hardly, 20 to 30% of people succeed as a businessman, as an entrepreneur. So even once you don't invest a lot of money, you are already in a safe side. So invest your ideas, invest your thought process, and then you become an entrepreneur, and then things will fall in place. I do that because I don't have any money with me. My wife is having a lot of money. So I'm just investing only my thoughts at the moment.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Any other questions? See, one very important aspect in organizational psychology is whether what you think is right, thinking is right thing or good thing or bad thing, whatever, you should be able to speak that. This is one major quality of an organizational psychologist. If you think that, whether I'm talking sense, nonsense, then it is going to be very difficult. That's what I was telling in the beginning. You should be able to speak nonsense to a stranger and make him comfortable. That is a first symptom for yourself to understand you can survive as a psychologist.
Okay. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. So really, it was a very wonderful session, very interactive session. So in this moment, I would like to invite Mr. Jijin R.S. to deliver the word of thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Anu. Firstly, good evening to everyone. Myself Jijin, and I am here to present the vote of thanks for today's webinar. I would like to thank you, our speaker, Mr. Amar Rajan, Director and CEO of Mindkarta, for accepting our invitation. And today's webinar was full of knowledge and interesting things. It gave deep insights into the topic and also revealed some interesting facts. The point where Mr. Amar told us about the scope of organization psychology post-COVID was really informative. Also answered many questions which was raised by the participant. In other words, including myself, there was a thought that after completing my studies, just joining before the any kind of job, we must understand about the psychology fully. Then only we can able to perform the job. But after this session, it is an eye opener that. So actually, we only need the interest, and we need to be creative. So this kind of eye opener to everyone that it is kind of a traditional way. And also other point is that he mentioned that when we think about the psychology or counseling, so we only think about the disorder point of view. And also he mentioned that nicely at the positive side of the organization psychology. So once again, I would like to thank Mr. Amar for taking out time from his busy schedule and enlightening us with the knowledge. So thank you so much, sir. And I would like to also thank the participants for your time. Lastly, I would like to thank our PPK team members for organizing in the interesting webinar. So thank you very much.
Okay, you are welcome. Thank you so much. It was really nice spending time with PPK team members and all the participants. I really enjoyed it. It was really nice to read your questions. I hope it makes sense. It was really helpful for you. So in case if you have any further questions, always feel free to email. My email ID is there in my website. You can check my website. And if there are any help you think you require, please feel free. We can connect. Okay.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. So shall I leave now?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So thanks again, everyone.